Yo, what's going on, guys? American Kid 17 here. Today we're gonna be hopping back in the Farming Simulator 19. I'm gonna go see if we can do anything in the my career mode. Yeah, I got all these mods. Selectable. Let's see. I'm gonna go back through here and check and see what mods that I don't want in here. Well, right now I want all of them. Alright, so we're ready. Let's see, my room seems lit up enough. I guess it's just the camera's like, it's just the way the camera is, I reckon. I just keep it up there. Gosh darn it, I forgot. I've got to go pick everything back up. This sucks. We're gonna go ahead and check and see what I bought. I've got another truck there, so I'm gonna drive this one. Oh wait, it's already loaded up, so all I gotta do is drive it over here.
I'm John Green. This is Crash Course U.S. History, and today we come at last to the Civil War, the conflict that was never really created a nation. So here's what you won't be doing. We will not be describing battles and tactics. That's just as might I suggest Ken Burns or Christopher books like 1,000 authors. My favorite being James Richardson Selby's book. And number two, we won't be bashing and or praising Abraham Lincoln very much, although we do have multiple Lincoln here. So for that history, I mean, the Constitution, the Constitution, the Civil War, something other than slavery, because that is just so early 20th century. And number four, there will not be a lot of jokes today, because ha 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 ha, 700,000. Mr. Moon, actually only 680,000. Yeah, thanks for that. But recent estimates of between 680,000 and 800,000 total casualties, deadlier for Americans than the American Revolution, World War I, World War II, and Vietnam combined. So let's start with some basic facts about the American Civil War. 1861 to 1865, which corresponded with the presidency of Abraham Lincoln, the Union, or more colloquially, the North, fought against the forces of the Confederate States of America, or the South. Sometimes people call the Union the blue and the Confederates the gray, but in fact, the uniforms weren't very uniform. They were all different kinds of color, and also, with all that jersey blood, they were all different brown. Alright, let's look at that. Notice in this map that not all the states that had slaves were part of the Confederacy. Kentucky controlled the Ohio River, Missouri was the gateway to the West, Delaware and so none of that but the cause of the Civil War was about slaves after the war was about the also, Lincoln said in his second inaugural address, 1/8 of the whole population of colored slaves was not general people who both sides of the Western country, slave companies, and our all that was something to call. That said, in comments, lots of people will be like, the war was about agriculture versus industry, or the states' right to protect themselves from the tyranny of the big federal government. But if it wasn't really about that, the Civil War would have started to develop a nation crisis in the 1830s, as I'm sure you'll remember, Nancy Jackson came to South Carolina, and a federal tariff control, and then why didn't that come? The Confederate government passed the first Conscription Act in American history, implemented national taxes, created the national currency, and had a government bureaucracy of about 70,000 people, more than the federal bureaucracy in Washington. Okay, so with that said, in the beginning of the war, Lincoln was simply trying to downplay slavery and argue for holding it back. But the war was also about both sides, and the goals of the country in the second year, I feel more response to extending the conflict, across the country, around the world, suddenly welcome the country to communicate more perfectly to God than the one they had left. But it's also important to know that regular soldiers often have something to say. Right? Like, you should start wearing it if you want to. And for Northerners, union, religion, and an end to slavery mixed together to form a potent rationale for war. It's summed up nicely by Julia Ward Howe's words to the song that would become famous as the Battle of the As we died to make men holy, let us die to make men holy. So similarly, for starters, they had many more people approximately. advantage the South had was better military leaders, like most of the tactically famous generals of the Civil War, Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, Jeb Stuart, etc., were Southerners, and also, by the way, they all had great last words. Lee said, "Strike the tent." Stonewall Jackson said, "Let us cross over the river and rest under the shade of those trees." And Jeb Stuart, after being mortally wounded in battle, said to his close friend and lieutenant, "Honey bun, how do I look in the face?" Famous Union General Ulysses S. Grant's last word was water, which isn't nearly so good, but he said that last word after having survived the war and getting to be, like, President of the United States and stuff. Right, but anyway, this all raises an interesting question. Was the result of the war a foregone conclusion? The Confederacy had to create a nation from scratch and build national unity among people who were committed to the autonomy of their individual home states, so that's a problem. And then there was the issue of overcoming class conflicts, especially when the movement class was often exempted from actually fighting in the war. But when we put aside all that nation building stuff and just focus on actual fighting in the war, the some of our people, all the Confederacy outlast the war during the past. Washington had to do something. And the idea was this war was pushing to eventually wear down the resolve. But there were two problems. First, the North had some superiority for some particularly long time to wear down.
What's the Civil War have to do with English? English, 11th grade English.
Long before the North. Oh, that's what it's about. The world real system. Whoa! I try to identify the object of history vacuum and define life as a natural trust, but I'm never right because Stan makes me too hard. I therefore determined first to use the greatest number of students practicable against the army. Second, the total intensity of the armed forces of the enemy and its resources, and so by pure attrition, was to do nothing left to him but suspicion. Okay, so the strategy of attrition was the Confederate strategy, but Stan is a jerk. But it talks about the enemy and his resources, which was kind of a Union focus, and more importantly, it talks about preventing him from using the same force at different seasons. That makes me think it is a Union General. Final answer, Ulysses S. Grant. Yo-ho! How do you like them apples? Grant was different from previous Union generals in that he was willing to sustain enormous casualties in pursuit of his goal to wear down the South. Because of this, Grant was often branded a butcher, like he was willing to weather incredible losses, including the 52,000 men, 41% of his army, who were injured or killed at the battles of the Wilderness and Cold Harbor. But his grim determination not just to defeat, but to destroy his opponent is what made Grant one of the first truly modern generals, and also the most successful leader the Union found. So Grant's brutal strategy, coupled with the vast superiority in northern resources, suggests that the outcome of the Civil War really was inevitable, but it also points to some of the reasons to be cautious about that conclusion. First off, it took 3 years before the Union actually fully adopted Grant's strategy, and between 1861 and 1864, it was possible that Southern victories would eventually force the Union to give in. I mean, the Union lost a lot of battles in the first 2 years, largely due to ineffective generaling, and nothing saps a nation's motivation for war like losing. Now, some argue that the North had superior motivation to prosecute the war because they had God on their side and they were against slavery, but that's also pretty problematic. I mean, for many men who joined the Federal Army, a war to end slavery had very little appeal, especially poor enlistees who might be afraid that newly freed slaves would compete with them for jobs. Also, while we are correct in considering slavery unjust, Southerners who took up arms for the Confederacy saw themselves as engaged in a fight for their own freedom rather than a fight to protect slavery. The truth is, when it comes to fighting, motivation is a very tricky business, and I'm most comfortable agreeing with James McPherson, who argued that motivation waxes and wanes with victory, and that the outcome of the war was contingent on a number of turning points. And we're just going to discuss two of the most important, July 1863 and August 1864. July 1863 saw two of the most important Union victories in the whole war. In the Western Theater, General Grant laid siege to and captured Vicksburg, Mississippi, thus giving the Federals control of the lower Mississippi River. I mean, by then the North already had New Orleans, which made it pretty much impossible for the Confederates to ship cotton or anything else along the Mississippi River. After that, Grant was able to turn his attention to the east with the aforementioned hammering of the enemy and their resources. More famously, especially in the eastern part of the United States, the first 3 days of July 1863 saw the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. This was General Lee's furthest major offensive in the North, and had he won the battle, it is likely that panic would have set in places like Philadelphia and maybe even New York. Actually, panic did overcome New York in draft riots that killed more than 100 people and only ended ended after troops from Gettysburg were called in. I'm not going to go into detail about either of these battles, but they shifted the tide of the war in favor of the North, although not enough to bring the war to a quick end. Confederate forces would never again threaten a northern city. August 1864 saw another turning point that really spelled the doom of the Confederacy, and that was when Union General Sherman took Atlanta. Atlanta was a railroad hub and manufacturing center, but its capture was more significant politically than militarily because it happened close to the election of 1864. And that American election was really the last time that the Confederate States of America could have won the Civil War. It's easy to forget this, but Lincoln actually had to run for re-election during the Civil War, and by the summer of 1864, the war was pretty unpopular, and it looked like Lincoln might lose. The capture of Atlanta changed public opinion about Lincoln, and it meant that his Democratic opponent and former top general, George McClellan, didn't stand a chance of winning, which was really significant for the war because Lincoln was committed to ending it with a Union victory, and McClellan, I think it says a lot about American history that in the end, the war's outcome was ensured not just by military victories, but by a political one. Next week, we'll examine the effects of the Civil War and the enduring questions that have arisen out of it, such as who exactly freed the slaves. But until then, thanks for watching. Crash Course is produced and directed by Stan Muller. The script supervisor is Meredith Danko. Our show is written by my high school history teacher, Raoul Meyer, and myself. Our graphics team is Thought Cafe, and our associate producer is Danica Johnson, also responsible for Fell to Abraham Lincoln. If you want to suggest captions for the Libertage, you can do so in comments, where you can also ask questions about today's video that will be answered by our team of historians. Thanks for watching Crash Course, and as we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.
I still don't know why. What does... Still don't know why. Or what does the Confederacy and slavery and stuff have to do with English? I really don't understand that.